Hi, this is 5 on 20 News with Richard Aguirre.
And Zaira Livier. We're coming to you live from downtown Tucson. It's Tuesday, July 17th. First, let's talk local headlines.
July 11th.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. A University of Arizona student was killed on Greek island of Zynos after 10 people followed him out of the bar after an argument. 22-year-old Texas native Bakari Henderson was beaten to death after witnesses said that he angered one of the club's bouncers when he and his friends tried to take a selfie with a waitress. 8 people were arrested in connection with the killing, according to the police. Among those arrested, 6 were Serbian nationals, 1 was a 34-year-old Greek man, and the other was a British national of Serbian descent. The suspects face charges of voluntary manslaughter for killing Henderson, who died of a severe head wound. Henderson's friends said that it was unlike him to get into a bar brawl, as they said he's not usually one to act aggressively. He graduated last month from the U of A with a degree in business and finance entrepreneurship and was in Greece working on a photo shoot for a new clothing line, according to his family. Henderson's family is working with the State Department to recover his body, and a GoFundMe page has already raised $30,000 to cover funeral costs.
59-year-old Mark Pritchard was arrested outside of Senator Jeff Flake's Tucson office yesterday when he allegedly made threatening remarks to a staffer. According to the staffer, Pritchard said, "You know how liberals are going to solve the Republican problem? They're going to get better aim. The last guy tried, but he needed better aim." The statements are likely referring to the shooting of Louisiana's Steve Scalise, who was shot on June 14th by a former volunteer for Bernie Sanders. Scalise remains in intensive care after he was readmitted because of an infection concern. In addition to Pritchard, 70-year-old Patrick Deal was also arrested and charged with trespassing for trying to enter Flake's office. He reportedly tried to force his way into the office when a staffer opened the door to hand out informational packets. Flake has come under fire for supporting the Republican plan to replace the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Constituents are increasingly upset that Flake has so far avoided the public to explain his support. No surprise there. But with the threat of violence, it looks even more likely that we'll be seeing Flake around Tucson. The Tucson arrests were just 2 of at least 15 protesters who were arrested nationwide. 80 arrests were made in the D.C. area after mass protests took place outside of congressional offices. Shout out to Samantha Coronado, who also got arrested from Tucson. Protesters demonstrated in 13 different locations in House and Senate buildings, according to the Capitol Police officials. In addition to Flake's office, protesters circled the offices of Ted Cruz, Rob Portman, and Lamar Alexander, all Republicans who support the health care legislation. Some of the protesters outside Cruz's office laid down on the street to block foot traffic. Unfortunately, Cruz has a habit of walking all over his constituents, and he didn't notice the crowd.
Cruz slam. Arizona leads the country in number of illegal drone flights over forest fires, according to the Office of Random Statistics. KNAU reported that there have been 7 recorded drones hovering over fires in the past month, including the Goodwin fire near Prescott, where 2 drones were spotted and 1 led to an arrest. Gene Allen Carpenter of Prescott Valley pleaded not guilty last Thursday for flying his drone over the fire on June 24th, soon after it began. Flying drones over fires is illegal because it causes dangerous flight risks for helicopters and airplanes that are trying to battle the flames. The FAA has warned drone operators not to fly over or near fires. They say that along with putting aircrafts at risk, it risks the lives of the firefighters on the ground, who depend on air support. 12 illegal drones have been spotted over fires so far this year, and 40 cases of illegal drones were reported last year.
Now, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that an insanity defense requires test results if criminal defendants went through a voluntary mental exam. The ruling also says that these disclosures to prosecutors must include a defendant's statements about the charges against them. However, these statements can only be used to rebut claims of insanity, not to prove guilt. The case was appealed when human rights groups claimed that this violated the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. But the unanimous Supreme Court ruling stated that the Fifth Amendment was not being violated because the mental health exam isn't ordered by the court, only the results if a defendant chose to take the exam. They state that when the defendant agrees to take the exam, then they waive the protection from self-incrimination. The case originated with Josh Rasmussen, who was awaiting trial in a 2013 Glendale murder case. And now in national and international news.
It looks like Jane Sanders is feeling the burn. According to Washington Post, federal investigators are looking into a land purchase by Burlington College, which Sanders ran until her resignation in 2011. Sanders hired a lawyer after finding out the investigation, and former trustees of her college, they've been questioned by her counsel in the last week. The case involves a $6.7 million loan that Sanders secured in order to buy 32 acres of land alongside Lake Champlain in Vermont from the Catholic diocese. Sanders secured the loan by promising large donations from alumni and high-level donors. After securing the loan, it was found that many of these donations were either not promised or that the timing was wrong, which led to her resignation. Government investigators are looking into the case as a possible example of bank fraud by Sanders. However, Jeff Weaver, a spokesman for Bernie and Jane Sanders, denied wrongdoing last week. Weaver told the Post that Sanders hired a D.C. law firm because she feared that the case would be used to derail any future political runs by her husband. These fears might be justified because investigators were tipped off by Brady Toensing, a lawyer who was the state chairman for the Trump campaign. Toensing wrote the United States Attorney and federal bank regulators asking them to look into the case.
That seems pretty legit. Now, the Red Cross claims that there are now over 300,000 suspected cases of cholera in civil war-ravaged Yemen. So far, the cholera epidemic has killed over 1,600 people in about 10 weeks. As the aid group says, the problem is spiraling out of control. In late June, the World Health Organization declared the epidemic the worst cholera outbreak in the world. Robert Mardini, a Red Cross regional director, says they're now seeing about 7,000 new cases each day, with half the cases involving children. The problem began when the Yemeni government became unable to pay its public employees, leading to a stoppage in trash cleanup. Soon after, Yemen's water systems became infected with fecal matter, which is the cause of cholera. The disease causes severe vomiting and diarrhea, but is treatable in much of the world by replacing lost fluids in the affected person. The outbreak is a side effect to Yemen's 2-year civil war, where governments and international forces battle against Houthi rebels who unseated the president in a coup. In addition to the lack of trash cleanup, 30,000 health workers have also not been paid for more than 10 months because of the country's economic collapse. Saudi Arabia, who is fighting the Houthis, have been accused of blocking humanitarian aid and targeting airstrikes at civilians. Much of the Saudi firepower was purchased from the United States. No surprise there, causing some lawmakers to condemn the country for contributing to the disaster. Meanwhile, our president hoped that magic orb would magically fix the problem. No word yet on whether the magic orb has awoken from its slumber.
Magic orb. I don't know what that is. Sinclair Broadcasting is ordering more exposure for its must-run segments that air over its 173 local affiliates. These must-run segments are helmed by Russian-born Boris Epstein, who delivers right-wing diatribes where he tears about subjects such as university safe spaces and the United States welfare system. Sinclair will now require its stations to air 9 Epstein commentaries per week, up from the current 3. In addition to the commentaries, Epstein will also conduct interviews with DC political figures. The company was the subject of a segment on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, where the host criticized Sinclair for buying up local affiliates to spread its anti-government right-leaning opinions. In some areas of the Midwest, Sinclair stations are watched more than CNN and other major networks, lending a sizable amount of influence in key battleground states such as Michigan and Ohio. The FCC is currently analyzing a proposed $3.9 billion deal for Sinclair to buy Tribune Media, which would make the company even larger. Critics say that the merger would overly consolidate the media market and give Sinclair outsized influence to sway public opinion for some political figures of their choice. If the merger goes through, then Sinclair would possess about 39% of the national audience for local news. Epstein looks forward to making cuck a household term by discussing topics such as why progressives are killing baby pedophiles and why don't women talk to guys named Boris.
The Consumer Financial Protection adopted a new rule on Monday that would no longer allow banks and credit card companies to force customers into arbitration. With the new rule, customers can now join together to file a class action lawsuit against financial institutions. Previously, customers were barred from the class action suits and instead were forced to take the company to arbitration, which was rarely acted upon. This is because the disputed charges were too low to justify paying court fees and attorney costs. Critics claim that financial institutions used the arbitration rule because they knew that most customers wouldn't take them to court on their own. But with the rule change, customers can now band together in order to sue credit card companies and banks. However, there's a chance that the rule may be overturned if congressional Republicans get their way. Republicans have charged that the rule is a gift to trial lawyers, who are generally major funders to the Democratic Party. Congress has 60 days to overturn the rule through the use of the Congressional Review Act. But it might be tough to carry out because the public thinks that they should get a day in court with financial institutions that have wronged them. If Republicans attempt to overturn the rule, it risks making them look friendly to the financial industry, which they've tried to distance themselves from because it's absolutely true. This was 5 on 20 News.
Who are you?
My name is Zaira Livier.
My name is Rich Gary. Real quick, I just wanted to talk about the comedy show that's going on tonight. It's going to be at Surly Winch on 4th Avenue. It starts at 10 o'clock. It's an open mic comedy show, and you should come by. And if you've ever wanted to do comedy, you're more than welcome to perform. I guess I'm not going to get the graphic for it. It's fine. It's totally fine. Stay creative, Tucson.